Lydia Lors, and I'm teaching pre-K 3, 4, and 5 years old pathing.
I'm Ashley Jensen. I've taught kindergarten for 10 years, so this is my first year doing pre-K, and I'm doing the full day program under
I'm Nancy Wortman. I teach at Holy Trinity in Hardington, Nebraska. We have a 3-4-year-old program in the junior kindergarten in the afternoon. It's my 3rd year at school.
I am Christy Wins. I am from Hardington also. I teach with Nancy. We have a 3, 4, and 5-year-old. And I've been there since 2008 when they established it.
Thank you. I want to say, see the amount of experience that we have in this room and how we can really reap the benefits of putting this together. This our early childhood education new initiative push that I should say that we're doing on behalf of the Archdiocese of Omaha. Sorry, we're going to get a microphone in here so that everyone can hear Melanie. So I hope all of you have had the opportunity to take advantage of our new website, the Archdiocese website with early childhood education resource tools. We're going to be continuing to add to those constantly throughout the year. Everything that you have today from Melanie, she's going to be providing to us electronically. We will be uploading that into the site. So it is a complete resource tool for you. We also want you to offer, provide to us items and things that you're doing that we can upload as well electronically. We are going to continue with these professional developments, early childhood, the entire year. Melanie will be continuing to work with us, but we're also going to be reaping the benefits of Creighton University as well, since we can't take all of them from her. So I really encourage you, anyone that's working with early childhood education that hasn't in your programs, that's not here, or a school that's not here that you have a connection with, invite them and encourage them to come to these programs. You're going to be hearing continually from myself as well as Patrick Slattery, the superintendent of schools. For those of you, I should have introduced myself. I'm so used to being with the consortium of schools, I just think everybody knows me. I am Donna Bishop. I'm the assistant superintendent for the Archdiocese of Omaha. This is starting my 2nd full year. And one of the initiatives when the position was created last year by Patrick with the Archdiocese of Omaha Catholic School System was to put in an initiative of pushing early childhood education. For the 3-year-olds, the 4-year-olds, transitional kindergarten with those 5-year-olds, it's talking about extended care versus the daycare, the language we used to use, because of the fact that when you have extended care versus daycare, you remove all the components of DHHS, and you're working solely under the umbrella of the Archdiocese of Omaha, and that's what we want. What we've done over the summer, just to assist in helping Melanie up to speed of what we've done, I should say, not over the summer, all of last year, we worked with kindergarten teachers, preschool teachers on creating curriculum. So we now have curriculum and assessments for our 3 and 4-year-old program. We want it to align directly to kindergarten, so we work with kindergarten teachers as well. We all know that we need to step up. What used to be in kindergarten is now in preschool. Because what used to be students, we all know, kids stayed at home and they were with mom. Well, now moms work. So education has changed immensely in the last 5 years, the last 10 years, not only in kindergarten through 12th grade, but in preschool as well. We also all know that the component of this, the importance of being on grade level by 3rd grade is what's really pushing this preschool initiative on getting our students who are ready. We don't want them coming into kindergarten just looking at and seeing the letters and the numbers for the very first time. So that has all changed, which you all know because you're in it absolutely every day. So what we want to do is give you the tools and the assessments so that we know when we're done with the kids are done with preschool, they're stepping right into kindergarten and we're taking off, because we do need to have them ready by 3rd grade on grade level, because it's just the statistics reveal any student that is not on grade level by 3rd grade, the chances of them getting on level are just, it decreases immensely. So again, I want to take the time and give you all of your time with Melanie because she's going to be able to give you so much more. But again, I just really encourage anyone that's not here, if you can help spread the word and the benefits of our new website, our resource tools, please use them. It's just heartening when I get calls into the school and they're asking us things, and I'm like, every bit of that is on the website. Don't even know about the website. So spread the word. Okay? Yes.
I know that you want to get this as far as what we need. So can we pass on to paper and just anything that you guys feel is something that your maybe your biggest challenge in your classroom this year or in past years, and you feel like it's an area that you'd really like to learn more about or get some tips from or about? Why don't we sit around a piece of paper and you guys can write down that topic, because they're looking at trying to figure out for the whole year for us for professional development what you guys need. What are the tricky spots for us? So you'll write them down.
Okay. What I'm going to pass around is the attendance sheet. Please put a check beside your name so that we know who actually was here, and to confirm that your information on it is correct. On the back side, if you have any ideas for PD, please just add it. All right, Melanie. We are going to ask for you to speak on the microphone because, as Sarah alluded, when you're back here, you can't hear anything up here. It's either that or we have to shut off the air conditioners.
Not today.
That's why I wore what I wore today, because I know how warm this room is.
Is that appropriate? All right, sit down.
Testing. Testing 1, 2.
Everybody here?
Can you hear back here now?
No, you can't hear? You need a little bit louder? That's fine.
Testing. Testing.
Because we want it to pick up over here. So
Testing.
as loud as we can go right here.
Is that okay? I don't want to go too loud.
Hello. Good morning, everyone.
There you go.
Is that working? Okay, great.
Thank you.
There will be times when I also am moving around with you, so I'll play the mic and then I'll try to run the back. So it can be recorded. So, I did want to talk to you a little bit about the opportunities that we have with what I call the career pathway. And so in talking with Donna, then I wanted to, we looked at our program and what opportunities there are. And so put together a document and we'll create it in a way that's user-friendly for you to look at. But I tried to look at, with the different people coming in, what your background already is. Some of you already have early childhood endorsements, and that's an avenue that you have right there. If you want to do something different or spread, we actually have a Master of Science in Education program. It has 2 emphases. One of them is curriculum instruction. We're actually thinking about because our goal there and what we've done with our cohort that's in that program is to really focus on your practice. Everything that you learn and every project that's in there is connected with what you do. And so curriculum instruction is very broad-based, and in fact, our cohort right now, the majority of them are actually pre-K kindergarten, and then we have a couple 3rd and 4th grade teachers and one special ed. So it was really interesting for me to teach them because all their projects were mostly early childhood. So that's, might be for somebody who has the endorsement. The Master of Science program, if you have your bachelor's degree and you have an elementary education program completed and you would like to add early childhood, that's an avenue you can do through with a full Master's of Science in Education. Or you can take the 18 credits at a graduate level in early childhood and get that endorsement added onto that. So that's one layer. Another one is if, depending on what your degree is, then you want to expand into certification. I know we have professionals at that level. Like I said, I haven't done an individual assessment plan with you, and I'm happy to work on that. I'm happy to work on that too, to help you decide what you want and what you need on an individual basis. But we have a Master of Arts in Teaching program. So it is a certification track. You may have had courses already. You don't have to retake things that you've had. Like basically human development or something like that. So we look at what you've had, fill in the gaps, and you can get elementary education and early childhood endorsements in that program. That's a Saturday program. There's some online, and there's some that are Saturday courses for that. I didn't say about the MSE. We've done face-to-face with some, actually hybrid, with face-to-face and then online work and online courses. We're actually looking to go all online, and part of that is to reach out to our people who are in the outlying areas. And so that also is something that you can then work better around your schedule of practicing teachers and executives too. We have had it on Saturdays in a 4-hour block and online, but that's our plan this year, is to do that in response to what people's needs are. So that's an opportunity again. So the Bachelor of Science in Education is, you can add on the endorsement, or you can add on the whole master's degree with the endorsement. So, that's an option there too. So certification seeking is our MAT. They do a plan for you. If you have all that and add it through that, it's the same process. It's the same AT. We collaborate and work together on that. But if you're in a degree seeking place, this is a conversation that we've had in terms of how can you use that as a career pathway. And so we're discussing auditing the courses with the other students. But I said, I really think we want to give you the background that you need, earning credits that you might want to have, so that if you want to pursue that pathway, you have that. So we have some day and some evening classes in our undergraduate program, but our discussion has been, if we can identify a cohort, that would be maybe with our rural and our urban area, and do some online work that we would consider developing a cohort for those individuals, that would be a unique partnership with our ISA schools, and do that undergraduate and help you start that career pathway. Paths here, there, and everywhere. So you decide what path you're on, what you want to do with that. You also, if we do that group with the cohort at the undergraduate level, it might be degree seeking, or you're just starting into it, so you'll be able to access those early childhood courses, even if you're not ready to degree seek and take those other courses that maybe aren't what you want to do right now. So I shouldn't say that. But it's true, we have to deal with the reality of what we're doing. So that was a discussion that we've had, really trying to look at the range of background and the range of your experiences, and trying to find ways that are entry levels to help you move where you want to go. So hopefully that cover it. And so as I've shared with her, information about course descriptions at our graduate level, and I can do the same with undergraduate. We just had together again as we were exploring.
And we are in the process of finalizing everything. So our goal is by the end of next week, or the following week, you'll have everything uploaded, the application form. You will be applying. You will be sending in a resume, filling out some questionnaires. Why do you want to move forward? Where are you at now, and how do you feel that going back and getting some education is going to benefit? And then we're going to go through, we have a committee which consists of Patrick, Superintendent Stewart, myself, our administrative assistant, and our curriculum director will go through the applications. Patrick has earmarked at this point at $100,000 for additional funding for any individuals to go back and pursue whatever level we are at, I guess, for everyone, whether you have zero education at this point or those that have a master's. We're looking at it in regards to what's going to be best for the school and moving forward with building this program. We're also offering not only early childhood education, but also special ed and integration with technology in the classroom. So those are 3 different areas that we're going to be offering out to all of our 1,500 employees to go back and pursue some college options. So again, we'll send it out to the administrators so that they can get to what's available. That will be under our website, under our teacher resources.
I forgot about those particular ones. If people are interested in adding that special education endorsement, which is actually quite extensive with some rule changes, but that's offered in our MAT program, and so that's there's Saturday courses and some online courses. They're all combined. When I say Saturday, they're combined with online. So some Saturdays you're on campus, some Saturdays you're not on campus. You're going to have online work, and then some courses are all online for special ed. About the technology, we offer that both at undergraduate level and as a graduate course. We have technology and education, so it is very hands-on, using technology, not just for tools for you, but engaging the students in it. And it is changing, evolving place, but we're really big on free. I mean, Catholics too. So, we're really big on using free applications and things like that, and design are very expensive, that would be expensive for you to use in schools. So very hands-on. As part of that class, students develop an electronic portfolio. If you already have one, you can expand that. If you don't, and you can, for you, it would be a professional portfolio, gathering evidence of your work and things like that, and just different kinds of things you might want to do on that level. So we have that at both levels. So we got that as well, and that can be an independent course. You're adding it on. Maybe you need a new certification, other kinds of things. If you have a bachelor's degree, you can take the technology course. You have to be in. So again, establishing what your needs, what your goals are, and see if we can meet some of those needs. And I'm happy to look at anything in terms of your educational background and on this individual basis, and look through information and help figure out that plan.
Our goal with the integration of technology in the classroom is to actually bring their students and their instructor into our buildings and have their students working with us, so they're having a hands-on learning opportunity, as well as our children are reaping the benefits, as well as our instructors are having an opportunity to see what's the newest and the best and the greatest thing that's out there right now. So that's a plan we're still working on, and again, it's Creighton is working with us on that as well. So our goal is to have the college students in our buildings and assisting us.
Any questions right now, or I'm happy to talk to you individually if questions later on. Part emails on the handout. So. Okay. All right. Now let's start our journey. And so I realized I didn't send Donna the title enough. It sent the title, maybe more, more people would flood the doors, to it. But I called it Creating a Learning Place, Setting the Stage and Guiding the Players. So it's going to have a kind of, a theater kind of theme to it, So at least it's not clowns, because I mentioned clowns for some reason in class the other day, and one of my students got very upset because she scared clowns. So there's no clowns. It's not a circus. It's not a, theater with clowns. So I'm going to go ahead and have you some handouts. And so we'll walk through that. I try to give you some resources and kind of refer to where the activities are, in part since we're also going to be sharing this afterwards with some other teachers later on. So that's why it lists activities on there, and does that structure for you. I feel like a singer on American Idol or something, adjusting. I actually can't sing, but I'm not really going to do that now right now. Maybe then. All right. So, we get those around. All you really need today is a writing utensil of some sort, pencil, pen, crayon if you prefer, but something to write with, for your own ideas and as you process through things. But otherwise, I have activities, materials, things we're going to look at, and so my idea today is to really guide you through thinking about, again, your own practice, what you're doing with learners now, and hopefully reinforce many of the things that you're doing, add some support, reinforcement to that, but also maybe add some other ideas and tweaks of things that you can do. So I really expect the work that you're going to do is going to be thinking and making decisions and interacting with the materials in a way. So you can, sometimes I'll mix the groups up. You might be able to work with some of the people from your own schools, but I also like to see you connect, and so I'll move you around and do different kinds of things and move some of the space around. So first thing, I'm very notorious for this. See, there's a little blank spot under the time to think and reflect. So you can either jot some notes down, or you can reflect in your mind. That's your choice in terms of your learning style. But I'm going to ask some questions and kind of take you to get us kind of primed for the work that we're going to do. So imagine yourself, even though I know you have a day of your classroom, maybe you don't really want to think about that maybe, but imagine yourself in your classroom. Maybe close your eyes if you want, you don't have to, but what parts of your room make you really happy? What parts of your room make you tense or anxious? What parts of your rooms make you proud? So that's your physical space. Happy, it's sad, sad, anxious, tense, proud. Then I want you to reflect on maybe a recent lesson or a set of lessons that you've done. Something that pops right into your head. It might be a successful one. It might be a challenging one. It might be one of each of those. Do you think that the learners showed you what they knew in that lesson? Did it go smoothly? Did it go kind of rough? Did you have to throw it out and shift gears in the middle? How did that feel? Did you feel like you were successful in being flexible? Or you just keep, I know they can get this, I know they can guess as you keep plodding along. Did that work? Or did they continue to struggle? So it kind of goes along with the ideas of, what also you want to learn. Hopefully those things will also come up. I know that Donna said you could write ideas on the back of the sheet. I would say also, as things come up during the day, go write some more. In fact, maybe I'll make a parking lot. I'll put a chart paper up and make a parking lot. And if you want to write things on there that you think of at any point in time, do that. And we can communicate it that way. And then that's another way that we can do that. So now you're in that space and thinking about that. Now I want you to think about somebody doesn't know you. They don't know your program. Maybe it's a family coming to visit the school, visit your program. Do they want their child to go there? Do they want them to be in the preschool program, in the pre-kindergarten program, in the extended day program? What are they interested in? What are they looking at? And when they enter your room, what do they know about you? What do they see that's important to you? Does it stand out? Or do they kind of feel like they're guessing? I see familiar faces. Should do that, they're filming me, sorry. I kind of forgot that, but hopefully somebody can edit or they'll ignore that. All right, I'm going to give you pictures of classrooms. They're not yours. And there's no spies or cameras, but just pictures of some classrooms. And I want to guide you through looking at these in some different ways. So I'm going to pass these out. I would say, let's do three at a table. We'll see how far they go. So you kind of partner together and look at them. All right. I'm going to pose a couple of questions to you as you look at them, and I'll bring some more around too, because I wasn't sure exactly how many we have. I have duplicate sets too. Okay, I want you to, I'm hearing those reactions. What do you like? What do you dislike? The other part of that is do that feeling level. Then look at and say, what do you think is reflected about that teacher's beliefs? What's important to him or her? What stands out? What do you know about that? We'll talk about this. Too much. Right. Or any washing machine. And the food. Yesterday, somebody said, "Oh, the wash machine's done." They're taking the baby out. So now you guys have never seen it.
It looks so like really. Very that was decided. We like I feel like they should have really like so much to do anything. Like the whole oh yeah, so when do you retire with this? Like when that's why that's already like it's sort of like it's in order in the back, so you don't have to look right. Like being back, but she likes it. She was like 20, and I was like, right, and she's 21. When her kids were born, but she could do that. Only on Friday. I don't know. I really like remember she said every
Likes dislikes. I went out. The only thing she's scared of is the smart because like she's never done it. Yeah.
See, ours has been broke the whole year. Yesterday,
Likes dislikes.
this one's the latest.
Okay. I love the conversation and I love the checking in to see what your thinking is and processing about the spaces. And people have very strong opinions. And we did have some kind of common agreement on one of the pictures has every other as the nice foam floors, but it's every other one is a different color room. And we thought maybe we'd lose our minds after being in there for a period of time. So that was kind of agreed upon. But there's some differences. I tried to really mix up some of the images because sometimes you go, that's too plain. That's too busy. Just right. It's kind of like, Three Bears. So, but there is a different aesthetic. That teachers like different things. And so you do make some individual choices. The reason I'm having you look at these is to, these are not your classrooms, so it's nice to objectively look and criticize somebody else's. But then you think back to your own. And if I had you look at these, like I said, one of the questions I said likes, dislikes, but also, what do you think the message is to the children in the rooms? Look at some of them and pick any one of your tables that you can share. Just pick one that you had a lot of conversation about, pro or con. Let's talk about that just a little bit. What message do you think the children are getting? What does the teacher believe? What was important in that? Okay. This is not portable. I always pull this over. I'm going to have just people use the mic to share just a couple.
The one that we selected look like a Montessori. Everything's orderly, a museum type quality. Ask you permission. And use this.
So now that's where some of the aesthetic difference comes in. Some people would like that order. And it depends whether or not the way it looks to you and may look to children is like, I have to ask permission to touch. I have to make sure I put it back in the right place. But others may, with what they establish in their environment, it may work for them.
You know
Yes.
what? There's glass, there's metal, there's things you see in the house. I think it also says we trust you to take care of things here. We're not going to put it all away because we don't think you can handle it. We're going to let you learn how to handle it. We're going to trust you that you're big enough to do it. So it looks kind of scary. There's a lot of glass and stuff. The flower, do you have that one?
Yes.
Does anybody not have this one?
Yeah, no, not everybody has it. Yeah, we pass them around if you want. Because, yes, and that one, the question was, or came up in one of the groups looking at that one, was it a Montessori program? Now, if you look at the specific material, it is not, because they're not as specific. It is actually a Reggio Emilia classroom, which the emphasis is on the home-like environment, much more wood. I'm not so sure about the glass either. That, you know, I thought, and I had my students in my undergraduate class were looking at this kind of thing too. And they said, "That's glass. That's horrible." You know, I said, "I'm not sure it's glass, but it looks like glass." So, but they do believe in terms of natural materials and things like that. So, and that's also a part of the room. So that came up with some of the things we're looking at. It's like, this isn't the whole room. No, it's not the whole room. And part of the reason I chose some of the images is so you would ask the questions about, surely they have this part in another space because, you know, of what your beliefs are. Other ones that you want to on the table, pick one to share.
This one just looks like come in and go crazy, like just go wild and nuts, and yeah, very overstimulating. I mean, lots of beautiful colors, but there's no place to put children's artwork. It looks like there's no, I don't know. It's just kind of what.
I think the teacher believes.
Well, I think the teacher believes, you know, come in and grab everything and be a kid and play and have fun, and but I don't know. That even looks to me like they were just being rules. I don't know.
All right. Like I said, that when you start looking at them and think about, we set up our spaces with intention. Now, sometimes when you've done it for a while, you forget sometimes why you do it year to year. What was the intention? Because I know I created a little map of where things went, and so the next year, then I set it up generally the same way. And of course, it was perfect, you know, that way is what I was thinking. Well, I had a little bit of a wake-up call because I was thinking at a practical level. Book corners, okay? What draws children into a book corner? Seeing the books, right? Okay, well, I hadn't done that when I look back on it because it was back to back with a shelf that had a little empty space underneath, and I was sure the children would climb underneath it and hide. So that was my block to that, but I had other attractive things in the center to draw them in. There's a listening center and other kinds of things to do, and you know, maybe and the little table with some books on display, but not the little nice little tiered book piece on there. And I thought, and I'm right, they're not under the shelf. That was truly my rationale. So when I went to college at St. Mary and taught, I then consulted back with the person who was taking over the program. Her name is Melanie too, so that was very interesting because they thought it was me. They came back and I've gotten a lot younger. She was a first-year teacher. And so I had given her my manual because, like I said, I started the program from scratch and all these things. And even the map, I said, you don't have to use it, but this is what I did, you know, all these kinds of things. I walked in to visit her, and she had that darn bookshelf right across there to draw the kids in. Nobody was crawling under the shelf. I thought, okay, my intention was more safety than drawing them in. So I went, how simple is that? She liked the rest of the room, I have to say. But I thought, that was great. She recognized this. And so sometimes we have to revisit our space to say, what is it that I'm trying to tell? How much is done for management? In my case, that management was kind of an issue. And how much is done for engagement of the learners in the space? So like I said, when you think about your own spaces. When somebody walks in, what do they know about you? What do they think they know about you? What do they think they know about you in your space? So talk about that a little bit at your tables. You know, what do you think when somebody walks into your classroom, they know about you or they believe about you? We'll just take a couple minutes to do that and then we'll transition. Go.
Our classroom so it was not useful for me at all.
And like people that aren't early childhood don't think like we get the stuff and
Oh wow.
and then I only had like 5 minutes at a time.
Yeah.
And that was my classroom.
Wow.
With that was my special classroom. That was
Come on.
everyone would be so young. Like, and how to place the right space for us. You know, and it was like we had our board so what like were their special ones?
Most of these were, they were downtime, for specific time. Small group of instruction. It was a resource lower function. This is we're talking though, when I lived in my house, and I lived in my house.
And they're all different ages. Like there's like kindergarten to fifth grade. Is it still like that? Like different ages? So then they get like mainstream in their own range of I couldn't be the teacher because you have such a boundaries and like your students are special education students but don't necessarily.
No, you're making different
Because Carrie taught it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have restructured.
So, what do you want to know? Walking your space, knowing that you what do you think about
So when you put out your Play-Doh, when I put up Play-Doh, I put shower curtains, the table, You don't want to have lives there. Like when he was there, I was like, wow. Like I knew he did it, but you don't want to just throw them under the bus. But you don't want to think you did it. You know, yes, still is like all that. And I still can
And Nicole Bayless made that really clear. She's like, I really did it.
This is the last time. Next time it goes off, we'll just leave it.
Just leave it all for good. I don't care. They're not really over there. My kids are like, just like how like closets and bathrooms are in the because they don't go in and just go. I just or whichever one was like out of the room and I was like teaching I know.
So what do they believe about you?
It's like, I think it's well balanced. I mean, like, how you guys are saying, a third of the space is instructional, a third is the work area, and a third is play area. And I feel like you kind of spend an equal amount of time to each. But oh, yeah. And also their intention and how it's perceived. Yeah. Developmentally appropriate. So it's well. And you would have to do preparatory or kindergarten. It looks like, this is great. But is it really they're allowed too much treatment or too much, not freedom, but kindergarten. I talk to parents and teachers that require sitting in the classroom.
Yes. And if you're going to do that, really a lot of it, when you're going to do there's a difference between the environment's going to teach and the teachers are engaged in the environment. Yeah, it's different. And so physically you don't always see that when you're working on it. That's what we need to do. Show them around in what they're doing. Then that becomes teachable, but
I would say it's not sterile.
I
was never seen that.
There's no money left. Yeah, it's like,
I know, it's obviously to look at it, doesn't it?
All right. Love the conversation.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. We can like, it's not bad.
So what I was hearing a lot of is, not everybody claim this, but many people said, I think they will see that it's organized because that's who I am. And there is importance to organization, so that it is useful to the students and this kind of thing. So we're talking about adults who come in your space have a certain perception, but the real important thing is what do the children come into the space and feel? Do they know what the intention is? And so, I'm sure back a little bit. What was your tag? So, but yes, in the blue shirt, yes. You were saying the first thing you thought you saw in your room was?
I have a lot of tables. I have 19 3-year-olds, so I have a lot of tables. So when they walk in, I feel like there's tables everywhere. But I don't think the kids feel that way because they play at the different things. But I feel like that, I'm afraid some of the adults come in and think that they're always sitting at a table, which they're not. But I need the tables for snack and things like that.
Right. And I said, it's because we have these needs of the space, and we were talking about this table, we were talking about our space is really large, and so we have to do these things. And our space is really small. We have 2 groups in the same one. So there's all these challenges that you have in terms of organizing your space, including sometimes where are the plugins, so where are the plugins at that I need to put the computer to? That's going to dictate where I put that. I know in my space, in terms of hanging children's work, I actually had a lot of space, but we had perimeter heat vents, so you had to hang them in a certain level because the fire marshal would come, and that's too close. So I can't use any of the space down low enough for the children to see here, but it was a need of the physical space. So those definitely can be challenges as well. Or as you were saying, the tables that you have to have in the space. But I invite you to just think about, you said the questions that I put in here, if you glance on there, was, what does it communicate to the children, to others? Is it what you want? So now you go back and look at your rooms, which is good. Look at the space and think, is it really communicating what I want? Is there a way I could adjust or change that in the general physical space, or just the way that I communicate to children, what the expectations are, just like you said, the tables. They know they use it for centers, they know they use it for those different kinds of things. But those things that don't draw them in the same way, then we often add more rules, more guidelines. How do we transition? How do we move? And so those are also things we have to think about with that too. I heard, I think, a lot of different kinds of things that were more challenges maybe than frustrations. But if you had to say frustrations in your space, you just shout them out. What frustrations might you have in your space? Too much stuff.
No place to store it. Right. It needs to be
Storage. Windows. Not everybody has windows. Oh, I've been there. No windows. Or windows too high.
It's hard to use electronics because my computer is back here, but everything is up there. And so you can't use like a document camera because I'm way behind my children by a long shot.
Plug in, that's the access to that, and not to mention access to the technology, internet, some people don't even have what they think they could really benefit from with their students, without too. But yeah, where it's located at, can make a difference. Yes.
I think sometimes when you take an old building and you convert it for a preschool, for instance, I have no plumbing or bathroom. Yep. So I've got exterior bathrooms, and the use of that is so not productive. Mm-hmm. But I'm grateful I'm in a primary wing because if someone's in there and having a struggle, I have help. Yes. But that's a big change for me because I come from having it all within. Now it's all away.
Right. Modification of spaces.
Struggle with that.
That's definitely with more and more preschool, pre-kindergarten programs in all schools, Catholic schools, public schools, everything. They are converting those spaces that aren't necessarily user-friendly for young children in there. So that definitely is a challenge. Any other challenges or frustrations? Overcoming bases on that. So, like I said, hopefully this is just kind of gets you thinking about, all right, what can I look at now? Am I communicating this in a way? Now that you've looked and critiqued these objectively, go back and say, you know, do I have too much space? I have too many things in my space. Can that be changed? Do I have to have them now? What choices, you know, do I have? Sometimes we think that their expectations of us, or they're in our head, or you had some professor telling us these things, suggest it, and it maybe doesn't reflect your reality. I know, I can't remember which picture it was, but somebody said, okay, this is great, this one's our reality. So it has to also reflect what the reality is of it. But remember, you're the one who's, like, there's certain guidelines and expectations and curriculum and materials and things. You have that structure or infrastructure to work with. But remember, you are making the decisions. So sometimes, again, like me, you know, I got used to doing a certain way. I had an intention to do it that way. And then when I saw somebody else do something small, I thought, why didn't I catch that? So sometimes we stop thinking back what our intention was. So it's a good thing to revisit, you know, with time. Okay, so now we're going to move on a little bit in terms of what I talked about is what is your script. And this, in my mind, you know, I have to discuss with Donna and input that you all have given or principals have given and things like that. So I'm trying to cover a lot of bases. She said I'm going to teach you everything. I'm not. Sorry about that. But I'll do my best to take you through different kinds of paths. But I heard this word about organization, but the children feel welcomed. Organizationally. What was the word that you used? Balance. I heard balance. Balance talked about that. So how do we work with the balance of what's in our physical space and, you know, the kinds of things that we're offering students? So what I need you to do is you adjust my groups. So the two of you back, purple and blue, because they don't have names. So I'm trying to work on names, you know, as we go along, maybe we'll come up with new text. Could you join one of the other tables so that we have 6 groups? And so what I need you to do, you can stack the pictures up and I'll pick those up. If you can move, you need an empty table to work with this next activity. So just, you know, tuck your things down. Sorry, you don't have little pockets to hang on the back of your chair or storage. So do that and then I'll bring around some materials. Okay, what I'm having you do is yarn. 2 pieces. One that goes the length, one that goes the width. Okay, so you create 4 sections on your table. So that's what you're going to do. And so what we're going to look at is how do we know we have a balance of activities in our classroom? And so we're going to do a picture sort here. So I have all different kinds of activities. And we're going to look at them with 2 criteria at the same time. One is dry to wet, and the other is noisy to quiet. Okay? So, for example, if dry is at the top here, dry is here, okay? Noisy is here. in this section, you put dry, noisy things, so that might be what? Dry, noisy things, you might find it. Box. Okay. Box could be dry and noisy. Okay. Okay. All right. What would be a wet? Noisy. Wet, noisy. Some of them might be activities, some of them might be areas. What would be wet, noisy that you might do?
Like your arts and crafts center?
Arts and crafts. Okay. So I've got pictures for you to look at.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
No.
I know, I gave you the right words. They were just clusters, I'm not sure. Put your labels on the
So, dry, noisy, wet, dry,
Coming around with them.
You might as well do it right. I still thought not to make your name tag. I know.
She worked with both of us. Very nice. I think we used to work together, right?
We was.
You guys went to Gross? I went to Gross, but I graduated in 80. But all three of my kids graduated in Gross.
Oh, that's a marvelous.
They're older than you guys.
I don't think
That's
that's
I almost threw it right. I guess like brothers that are paying.
What's your last? Watson. Dan Watson.
My last name's your nephews.
My niece is called Thomas Moore. Really? No. It might be Stokes.
So you've got your intersection, you'll have fire drive. So you'll have registers. Yeah. Slide.
Yeah, so it's fine.
Is that a same blood noise?
No. Flubber is just, it's like. Something like that.
Oh, they're
What is that? It just looks.
They have a special card paper on the gym.
Oh, it's after, I thought it was like, oh, it's supposed to be. But I don't know. Like this.
Yeah, it looks like
You guys caring for yourself. Take your garbage.
Condition of a little bit of sorting.
It's really nice.
Well, I really hope all right, while you're finishing some sorting in the groups, then talk a little bit about that. Were there things you had to debate on? You know, what kinds of considerations did you make when you were doing your sorting? Yes.
It's hard to decide how big the groups doing the activities would be, or how the individual groups of kids would react in the situation. Someone who's quiet and someone who's loud. So many different factors.
That's an excellent point, because where you have materials, how many children are able to work on those at any point in time, where they are in the space. For example, I had manipulatives, like puzzles, Legos, kind of things at a table top. But I also had those builder kinds of things on the floor. Same material. Legos are connected, square connectors on the table, also on the floor. I had floor puzzles as well, and things like Lincoln Logs that don't stay well on the slick surfaces. So on the floor, builds. At the table, they may work next to a partner, just associate play by them. They might work together on a project, but on the floor, it tends to increase that collaboration and cooperation and the size of the build. I don't know how many times that I was laying on the floor while they were measuring how tall I was. And how tall my para was, because she's was 5'11", and I'm not. And so they thought it was fascinating that I'm the teacher, but I'm smaller. So I think they thought she should be in charge because she was more grown up. But so that piece of that then does change whether. So Legos at a table or doing something manipulative at a table could be quiet. On the floor, but others collaborating would be noisy. So that's an excellent point. Other kinds of things you had to think through, or any that were challenging. We had the same kind of question. Okay. So why did I have you do this? I'm trying to figure that out. This is one of the ways to think about balance. Now, not all of the pictures are randomized, so what I'm going to have you do now, which I'm supposed to stretch, is we'll do a gallery walk, and you can walk around to see what the other sorts are. But it's just another way of thinking about balance, And it's not just what's organized maybe in the center, if you have a math center or language arts or arts and crafts or those kinds of things, but what kinds of experiences am I also giving them? These happen to be more kind of physical oriented, some of them. And so it's just figuring out, how do I balance? So what am I missing? Some of them just is by the sword it is. So what was an area that was missing or light in some of the groups? Noisy and wet, and this one. Noisy and wet. Noisy and wet. This one. What was this one here?
Quiet and wet.
Quiet and wet. Quiet and wet.
Quiet and wet.
Quiet and wet. Not wet. And I'll tell you why. It's sometimes hard to even find images out there, common practices that fit that in your classroom, fit in the messy. And messy can be a science of experimenting, you're planting plants and you're using dirt. That's messy too. So, but this is just a way of thinking another way. What opportunities am I giving the learners, the children that I work with, so that they have, the different tactile experiences. They have both the quiet and the noisy, busy noisy. Not busy noisy. Busy noisy, I always said. They're busy noisy. Or they're active or they're collaborating. So it's a good way to kind of think about that. So now we'll do it orderly fashion. So stand up and we will go clockwise. So go to the next table around and just kind of take a look at their activities and what they sorted. And then we'll come back and we'll kind of close this out.
Wow, that's beautiful. I'm gonna stand right here for a while. Stand right there.
Oh, I don't know. I think bugs would get noisy. Ew, gross.
Your kids are scared to death. Hey, that's a good plan. They don't get outside of that orange.
It's supposed to be watchable.
But there's nothing in it.
Yeah, I took the lenses out, all the stars. And I was like, in that way, because I like that. A lot of these options, so it's when we get to see it. Just at the table, where
Okay, what about that one?
I know that. Oh, it's in spray bottle.
I'd like some.
Look at how fun this would be.
Hey, doing this in the snow is great.
I just love it.
Oh,
Like the color on
Yeah.
I know. That's what I was thinking. Yeah, that's what they like sell.
Done that.
I love like
ice
cubes. Yeah. We did. Ice cubes and the blood is so cute. Oh yeah, those kids do. And then
Oh, here, thanks.
We do corn painting, and so they roll it in paint.
They get so messy.
some of the best pictures ever.
I really want to be Really? I only have to have this.
When you're ready.
Oh, yeah. I guess, because I think if you plug the like the headphones and glitter, you're on the front, so you don't see the listen to it. But I don't want them using our ratings. That's fine.
Oh, there you go.
Right people on our side.
That's how we didn't get
Whenever you get around, and you can come back to your own table, but we have to make sure you get everything.
Oh, that would be fun. Oh, that's nice. You gotta do a bunch of hours. Yeah. Yeah. It's some great things too. And then whenever my office is having a
Don't have prizes, but come on down.
Is it like just
I love walking through and hearing the conversations and just looking at some of the ideas and like, what is that? What is that? What are they doing? You know, so a lot of interesting ideas. Hopefully being able to look at all the other ones, since they were like very randomized to see what you would get, you can kind of see the total together of all the different kinds of activities that you might choose or the balance that you might want to provide in terms of this. This is just one way of looking at it. We also look at areas in the room, learning centers, those kinds of things as well. But I like that this also focuses on not just the physical space, but also the activities that you plan. That helps create the balance. And just like we were talking about, and what is your name with the blue shirt now that you have name tags on? Yes.
Denise.
Cindy?
Denise.
Denise. Okay, thank you. The Denise was talking about, with the tables, but yet feeling like she had balance with the other part. So sometimes we have to have those empty spaces, but then she was sharing about, but then they do things there. So it's what you do in the spaces that creates the balance, not always what you're able to do in the physical space. And setting that up. So the next thing, and so if you want to stack up the pictures, you can put them in a little stack there. I'll come and I'll check those later. And just put your little yarn in the middle. And we'll do this next activity, kind of discussion here. And then I'll give you a little bit more substantial break for that. Not like the rest of the day, but So that's what we're talking about, achieving a balance. Where do the children spend the most time in your day? That's the planned activities that they do. What do they do in whole group? What do they do in small group? When do they have opportunities for individual choices? How is that built in? Even with a small group, what are they doing? So it's finding those different opportunities to provide, the balance in that way too. So moving into that, I'm talking about guiding the players, maximizing the learning time. So when you're doing activities with the students, or whether they're in the space using areas in the room or other kinds of arrangements that you have, how do you minimize wait time? I assume wait time for some of your students is challenging. So let's talk first. What are some of the struggles that you have with times where there's wait time? What happens? Yeah, in your schedule of the day, when you're doing things, what's happening when this wait time happens and what do they do? Okay. They're standing too close, all right? All right. Touching. Do they stay in the space where you want them to stay? No. Okay. But you're doing this, what you think is a really interesting large group activity. I mean, I'm like somebody talking to a large group like me. You're doing this really great activity. It should draw their attention. And you're going to, and each one has like a little felt piece that they're going to come up and they're going to have their turn to put it on the board. They're going to have a turn. Each one is going to have a turn. So, yeah, in charge. And how are you going to do that in an orderly fashion? Who do you call in first? So then you end up doing what I call kind of the bounce, where they're bouncing. Yeah. They're ready to put me, my shape, my shape, my shape. And the other, some are like, help me. Like they're touching their neighbor, rolling around. I had one little boy, especially, and this dates me, breakdancing. He just spun on the carpet. Just spun. Too long, you have that bad transition, just spin. It's like, that's kind of how I'm feeling inside. We're all spinning. So you think, okay, but I want to give them all a chance. I remember watching, this was a kindergarten classroom, I was watching a student teacher, and she warned me, she said, the teacher believes in show and share. Well, that's a good thing. She goes, for everyone, every day, in a classroom of 20 kids. She goes, just saying. I'm like, okay. And she did. Show and share every day. Kids brought things. Now, they could bring them every day. Now, most kids did. Some kids did not. And so, and they went around. Now, they did good questioning, think of 2 questions what might be in their sack. It was always a hidden thing. And she said, I think I'm going to die. You know, and so some of the kids are like, questions, yes, questions, they're paying attention. And others again are, you know, I shared my toy, I am so in another zone, okay? So you think, okay, but I want everybody to turn. So how do I minimize that wait time? So what are some strategies that you use to minimize wait time? Or do you find this to be a struggle on an everyday basis? Yes,
during snack time, we use paper napkins that are folded in fourths. We have 2 students, one hands out paper napkins and one hands out cups. And when you get your napkin, you have to open it up and spread it out. And so the spreading out takes the time while I am passing out snack or pouring juice or whatever. So they don't have a lot of that.
Gives them something to do.
Yeah, something productive. They know they can't get served until their napkin is open.
Okay. And they're likely to be motivated to do that.
Yeah.
So, all right. Okay. What else? Yes. Yes.
If I have an activity where I'm going to have to hold, like let's say, we did God Made Us Special, and we let the kids take turns putting up their like a tag for their eye color, graphic charting. So they had a blue tag for their eye color, guys, and they got to pick it up. Well, that took forever, and the kids loved having their turn. But we ended up spreading it out to where that was a transition activity during cleanup time, or maybe I was going to send a small group to the bathroom. So we broke it down, we broke the activity down. So it took basically like 3 different times to get them all through.
Good idea. Yes.
Sometimes I might have them, while Susie and Tommy are putting theirs up, everybody have your hands over your head. Next to, put them under your chin. And then they have a, you know, and still some of them can't handle it,
Right.
but at least give some of them something to do.
When you maybe have those necessary kind of wait times and things in there. Like I said, there's this, again, we go to intention. Intentionality is a big piece of that. So somebody mentioned developmentally appropriate practice. Developmentally appropriate practice, you know, for young children, you know, birth to age 8, you know, overall includes understanding what's age appropriate. So what are 3s generally like? What are 5s generally like? What are 7s generally like? But then it's individually appropriate. What is this 4-year-old like versus this 4-year-old like? What is this 3-year-old like versus this one? So you take that into account. And also about their background or their cultural context, you know, their family, you know, who they are, their personality, individual learning styles, those kinds of things. The other piece to doing that, which is what I really liked in the 3rd edition now of developmental practice by NYC, is intentionality. You are the decision maker. So it's not like a book of you have to do to make it look perfectly right. It's a recipe. It's look at these kinds of things in terms of practice, and you make decisions and be intentional with what you do. So when you were sharing that, so the intention was that each student gets involved in it, and that's a good intention. But when you're losing the wait time, then you're losing the learning time. So by dividing it up and doing it that way, then it helps a little bit. So sometimes you just have to tweak it. So sometimes, what can I give them if I have a large group? What do I have? What is it I really do need to share with the whole group? Not just to be efficient, but to be effective. I want them all to have this shared story because we're going to do a follow-up with that. And then I'm going to have them transition to small group work. Okay? They all might be doing small groups of the same thing. So the adults that you have in the room, how many you have, the support, how many you can do, and how you can divide it, number of students. So how can I do this? Sometimes you still might be the facilitator with the support of your para or any other adults who are helping in your space, that you can supervise them, but they're actually working small group, having conversations, much more engaged, less wait time, you know, doing those different kinds of things, so that they're more connected with what I say is hands-on, minds-on. We talk a lot about hands-on, which means they have stuff in their hands, you know. So we all have our felt piece ready to put it up there. So, but that's not minds-on. That's not connected to what the activity is. So using small groups is a good way to do it. And also I talk about partner. You think, okay, we're 3. you have to work through how you get along and share with others. They might be side by side doing something. Fours going on fives, I did kind of partner teaching. Instead of, the computer was used during centers. During that time and I did both assigned centers, planned rotations, so I knew where the children were going to be. I might pull into a small group then, or I might be doing assessments. I'm watching over the checklist, what they're doing, what they're choosing, whether they're doing it independently, whether they're mastering it. I'm watching them. But the computer is one of those. And so I always teach one, and they teach one. So they learned an app, and then they taught the next one. And you know what? They're better at it. And that includes the threes. My granddaughter, who has just turned 3, iPad. No, but can you turn on the iPad for grandma? Because I forget the code and she knows it, So they can do that. So sometimes you can also do that. Sometimes you might partner a child who has some stronger abilities to work with one who's got some challenges, but doing a game together. So there's different ways to partner and do that. If we were talking about children who are a little bit older than the age group that you're working with, then you might partner read and do different kinds of things. And that might be partner looking at a book, not necessarily reading. Or they're both in listening. So it's what way can I divide it up so that each child is engaged the maximum amount of time. And so looking at those opportunities, like I said, large group should be information I always want them to share. You know if you're doing a lesson in a large group and you already know ahead of time that it's going to miss several of your children, then it's not efficient anymore because you're going to have to go reteach them anyway. So dividing that up and doing it differently. Another strategy that I use with groups is using centers as some of the time. And then I had a group and I either did a literacy activity or I did math. And my para also did a language experience kind of activity. So we would divide them. Some were in centers, that was their center choice time. And then I had a group that we were doing, journaling. These are my 4s. And so where they were doing dictation, they were pretending to be a writer, even if they really were not yet writers in terms of conventional print. And so they had a picture journal, and then they wrote. So that was in small groups. Once in a while, I just stopped and everybody did it because we made progress. They learned what to be a writer, but I had to teach them first. Do all of the things work well when you do a large group and you're telling versus engaging? It doesn't always stick. Does it always work when they're in a small group? I'll talk a little bit about questioning later on. Sometimes we have to think also about engaging them, like I said, minds on, meaning they're making the choices. And we think we know what we're doing, that we're giving it to them, but we're really trying to open their heads. There's like a commercial, there's something about open your head and pour it. Open their little heads with a hinge, pour it in, close it, it'll be there. I'm going to tell you about a failure, lesson failure. Do you know what Cuisinart rods are? A lot of people do not use Cuisinart rods a lot. I should have brought them just for a demo. They are like unit blocks in a way. They're small, they're color-coded. So the smallest block is like, very tiny. They're, I don't know, they're probably about 2 centimeters or something. But, so it's like a white wooden color. The next one is like 2 units long, is like a green, and they're all color-coded. So you can make a stair step, sequencing. You can order, sequence and order. I got with my small group of students. We were working, they're exploring them, exploring the materials, and the characteristics, interact with them. And then I proceeded to say, look what you can do with them, and put them in stair step order. Even the bottom, the stair steps that at the top, and I showed them that. By golly, they can all do it. They're brilliant. I'm like, oh, wow, I'm so surprised they so easily did that. That ordinary. Huh. So checked it off, and I thought, this doesn't seem right. Some of these kids, they should have that uneven bottom of it, just one in the top. It takes 2 characteristics, length and really. So then the next day I said, okay, remember how we did that and used those? Show me what you can do with these. Okay, show me what else you can do with these. Not near, but some of them, yes, most of them not close. I had modeled it, they had copied it. It had nothing to do with what they thought or what they absorbed. So how we question and how we present is also a way of engaging with them. Using in centers and there's a difference between using what I say is center-based instruction, so that you may have centers and that is a primary means of instruction. And we talked about that a little bit with some of the images where they're using kind of centers and spaces around the room. Even though I talked about the environment as we started, the environment is a teacher, and some people call it the third teacher. Especially Amelia does, Montessori does, you know, they believe it's a third teacher, and it provides that. But you're still the teacher. So in that space, some things can be self-directing, but they need you connecting with them to help build the knowledge, and we'll talk about that a little bit too. So individual activities is another way of doing it, the centers, so that they're portable, because some of you don't have enough space. So if they have math activities, they're in folders, they're in a caddy, they can pull it out, they can go to it. So if you don't have all that physical space, then they can select. One of the things we did in our school was, with the principal we had at the time, is she fully believed in what I call center-supported learning. I would say in pre-K, I really was more center-based with supported a small group and other kinds of things and interactions and group and thematic studies and things like that. So that was a big tool for me. K-5, because we had two buildings, K-3, and then we had a 4-5 at the time. Now it's all on one campus. But she said, we're going to implement centers. K-5. And they're like, oh, no, we're not. No, that's not what we do. We do large group, and then we do individual groups, leveled groups for reading, leveled groups for math. The other 2/3 of the class, where are they? 0. She said, I really think there's a better way. Took 2 years to think. So we had across the second grade up, I believe, they had one teacher taught all the science, one teacher all the social studies. They did. So they said, do these centers, and this was center supported, so things they were already learning. They designed activities in those centers that then they went to practice the skills. Learning centers in that way for them, and even for some of the things we do in pre-K and K, that they're not brand new, but they're practice. They're hands-on practice, using it again. And so that's what they started doing. So then they had whatever size of the group, we'll just say a third. A third of the group might be with reading instruction with the teacher. A third of the group might be doing some, independent practice from the lessons that they had, and a third of the group were using centers. And then they rotated it. Because before, what happened is 2/3 are at their seats, and starting to do that, I'm done with my work, I'm causing trouble, I would say. And the other ones are in the reading group. Even with a para, and honestly at one time they shared para across grades, and they were not in all the rooms. So if you didn't have that adult there, then what are you doing with your instruction? Over there, get off the table, I mean, you're guiding, you're disciplining, you're doing this, while you're trying to teach. So if they're not going to be engaged, so there's a lot of different ways to do that. But dividing it up, or everybody is actively have hands on at the same time, and we'll do an activity later and hopefully that as well. All right. Okay. On page 2, just a section there, I provide some resources for you and ideas. And you know this, hands-on learning is finding those teachable moments. So that if you're using center-based, kinds of activities and things in your classroom or this portion of your day, then what are you doing? And one of the struggles is, and my students will notice when they go out to their field experiences and things too, they go, I don't know if I'm supposed to be out with the children when they're in centers and working in activities, or even in small groups working. I don't know if I'm supposed to be there because the teacher's, she's grading papers or sending things to the copies, and not engaging with the kids. Should I engage with the kids? Unless she tells you to go staple something, or make something, connect with the children. Because that's the teachable moment. So we have both the environment that we're planning, we have those teachable moments that you go out and you notice a child that they're starting to pattern. And so they're going red, blue, red, blue, red, blue, blue, red. I need the orange one. Would this fit in your line? No, that doesn't match. And they're starting, and you ask questions about that. And you foster it. And you help them go to the next level. You scaffold them up by providing the support that they wouldn't get if you're stapling a bulletin board. Doing other kinds of things. And so engaging, don't think that the environment alone can teach the children. That's a big confusion, I think. And I know people kind of talked about some things that were full day care versus half day, preschool, those kinds of things, and what makes a difference. And even the environments, like this looks like this might be daycare or childcare. My students know my position on this. Whatever length of time it should be for the children and the needs from their families, full day, half day, should be high quality. It should be engaging and educational and all developmental areas. It really meet other kinds of physical needs like napping and other things that you have to address in a 10-day day full day programs. But they shouldn't have to feel like they have to go to preschool somewhere else because their full day program isn't giving them what they need. That's not high quality. Okay, off of that soapbox. But it's just important to think about that. What am I providing within that day? Like I said, I worked in full day programs, and we did individualized activities as well. For that, we had this odd, little, useless box, useless wooden thing, had little cubbies in it. I mean, little cubbies, smaller than that shoebox that you would stick in there. Small. I thought, what do you do with this? Either get rid of it or do something. It'd be great if they had an individual thing. We do assessments. We know what they're working on. And so, because we're a lab school, I also had student teachers and other people who were with me. So they were assigned to do assessments. They did an individual plan. And they had to put a bag of materials in their little mailbox to do that. So we individualized that. So that, again, that's a way when you have transition, they could go check your cubby, go check your mailbox. There's a variety of strategies and things that we can use. But finding that teachable moment, and it happens in your whole group too. When you start going one direction and they take you somewhere else. And you're like, oh, that's a more interesting question. Let's go after that one. Let's check on that instead. So I put a little section there about the discrepant event, because that's the teachable moment. We're going to go back to theory. Let's go back to Piaget. So that it's easy to connect with things you already know. And that's why when we do lessons, we often want to connect with prior learning. Remember how we did this yesterday? Let's review what we did. We talked about it's fall. What are some of the signs of fall? We talked about signs of fall in animals. We talked about some in plants. So, and today we're going to, so you connect them, to do those different kinds of things. But then you give them something totally different. Do you know that it's not fall in other places in the world? Hello? What? Yes, fall everywhere. So they have to start processing and thinking about that. Yeah, I love when you present those things. I'd like to see their gears turn and stick. Just looking at you. When you ask them questions, good old Piagetian tasks. You have the 2 rows of blocks, they're equal in length. You stretch one out and you say, are they the same? Are they, this one more, this one? They're the same, they're exactly the same. Stretch them out. That one's bigger, that one's longer. Their reality is totally different. But when you ask them that, you don't do that necessarily for activity, but it's an assessment. And they come back and they say, I told you that was different. It's not. You were messing with me. Let me show you. Because you created that little, I say that irritation in the oyster to make a pearl. That discrepant event that's that teachable moment when you weigh that. Otherwise, we're not adding to the learning at all. Some things you add on, some things are totally new. So that's just a little bit more. Okay. What I talked a little bit about was questions. So I put a handout on the back of your page 5. I'm going to put page numbers on this prompt. So save questions. I love these. Save questions. Almost anybody can ask about almost any activity at almost any time, anywhere. So you can use them anywhere. This helps you think about those open-ended questions. And so what we're going to do, I'm going to do an activity with you. I'm going to have you have a break. Let's take a 10-minute break, come back, and then I'll have that ready to go. And we'll do that questioning activity. I know I've overplanned for the day, so I've got to focus on other things, but we're going to keep going. So take a 10-minute break, and then I'll get that set up.
Yeah, so she said, so that's what I thought.
Thanks for letting me know, though.
I got that.
So I don't know what you could do. Did you get it all done? Yeah. I just did you. No, she said what's that? She was my brain is there. So you know, I was like, They told me they had cinnamon in them.
Oh, that's right.
That's what that.
Oh, okay.
I just, we have to make it different. Like, print that one out. I just pasted it. I don't think that one.
Oh, that'd be great.
I did work well, if some of them finished, I
One of the things that's really
Oh.
and it's something that they can listen to. So I was on it, and for teachers, if I was like, that's crazy, but I was there, like, they were doing that, how it.
I'll text you.
Okay, okay. They were done, or as they were doing it, I didn't. Oh. Or so they would never know. I need to, like, but I want into some of our without. But I feel like I want to take this personal. I thought I could.
Oh, there's probably more.
That way I've got a video. Yes, I mean, you could. You have a table. And then other times. They need some too, so I can.
Yes.
I can never leave. We didn't have. But I know ours, some of them, probably a lot more obscure. Yeah. Classic. Oh, yeah. There's a geoform one. I inherited No, I'm okay. Teachers were very good. It's so loud. I was
Out there, restaurants. Yeah.
Tell me what.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's free.
Yeah, that's really good to know because we've also
Well, those are only 14.
And an individual or for us as teachers too.
Yes, yes.
Music time, anything else.
Oh, yeah, yeah. That's great.
I have no clue.
Did you ready to go?
No.
Oh, yeah, no, I was looking at the last night.
That's the video time.
It's right. There's not a. The best. I would say
No, no. Usually shift one and one. Wow. That's fine. Okay, I know
All right, so now for a little hands-on. So you can each choose a bag, and you don't have to dump the whole thing in the space you have, you know. So, and you each get your own bag. And I just first want you to just explore the materials. Just take a little bit of time to explore the materials.
I know.
I'm shapes. I drive a bunch of shells back and I put
I've never done like first, like I mean I've never. Go on, that's fine.
Okay, so you're in your exploration phase here. So now I'm going to pose some questions to you. So this idea with kind of the safe questions or probing questions to not necessarily to tell you what I want you to find, but I want to see first what you know and what you do with it. But I want you to take your objects, if you have them connected, if they're able to be connected, take them all apart. I'm sorry.
The greatest connection technology.
I know. You still get to do more things with them. So this was the exploration. And exploration, when you present materials, no matter what it might be. Let's say that you're going to, you want to talk about construction or community health. Let's go with construction. So I always like to have an attention getter, like a secret bag, or sometimes I just use a grocery sack. Just sat in my teacher chair, and they're like, "What's in there? What could be in there?" And so then pull out, oh, there's a hammer in here. Who might use this? There's, pull out different kinds of things to get the attention to do that. So you pose those ideas to get them to think and process. So, and then you present the information. So that exploration and curiosity building is so important first. You need to know the characteristics of the materials that you have. Are they soft? Are they hard? Are they long? That's that physical knowledge that you have to, that children have to gain by touching. There's a reason we're hands-on. I'll just keep them busy. But so they learn about it and they absorb it. Think back to babies. You expect it in them, that they're going to touch and lick and do all those things with it because they're figuring out what it feels like. They're absorbing it. And so we do that, and I know the girls still like things, they still do, but we prefer they don't. But whatever you do to explore them, and we all still gain through sensory motor. When you go somewhere for the first time you get in the ocean, it has a feel, it has a smell, it has those things. So they have to explore first. Now I'm going to pose some questions to you. So take your materials and arrange them so that they go together in some way. So you each have your own bag. Take your materials and put them together in some way. Organize them so they go together in some way.
Like a rainbow.
Yep. Just you have your own bag, your own materials.
It's funny that everything.
So, and if you need more to help you in that, take more out of your bag.
To make sense. Yeah.
Like I said, so so you have to go doing some decision making about that based upon the material that you have and the characteristics of them. It might lead you to certain kinds of things. So how many of you use color to organize them? Raise your hand if you use color. Guys around the room. Okay. How many of you maybe use shape to organize them? Use shape. All right. Anybody use material? Like there's different materials in there, different kinds of things. I had shells, I had rocks, buttons. Sometimes you get materials. This one's metal, this one's plastic, this one's something else. Size. Okay, how many use size? Okay, all right. So color, shape, and all right, so now that you've done that, mix them up and find another way to organize them in some way.
Here's all the same size.
I know
Doesn't go with my brain.
This is not how I do it.
So wrong.
All right, now you're going to be afraid of what I'm going to say. See if you can find another way to organize them so they go together in some way.
That's our bag.
Oh,
Well, she said you're new.
Oh, son of a gun.
It's hard to like not know what it's hard to go against your
They do it. Go by color.
All right, let's talk a little bit about what you chose to do this time around. So shout out some of the things that you did to organize them. Pattern. Quantity. She's wearing jewelry over here. She's got the long jewels, you know. There may not be enough for the whole group. All right, so she's creating something with it. Anybody else create a picture, an image? Yes, a few of those. Okay. Other things that you did differently? Okay, some of you were able to do like color, size, and shape. Anybody able to do 3? Some of the complexity, okay? You can see just by some of the materials what the children might be also led to do. And in your questioning, you know, proposing that opportunity to do it in some way, you're checking what they know, you're assessing, and then oftentimes then you go to the other kinds of questions. So let me try a couple other questions.
Let's see. Can you tell me how you started this? This way of organizing. How did you start that? Shape. Okay. All right. Shape. So she has shells here. So not all of them are the same color. Just shapes. To do that. Okay. So that's how she did that. Now, if I close your eyes and I hide a piece, see if you can figure out which one it is. Take your eye. You know what I mean? She's so logical. Is that good? Because too many, too hard. Yes. The questions have to fit. So even though it's the same question, here we go. If you had to do this backwards, what would you do? Backwards? If you did it backwards. Not what you physically backwards.
No, but one row here. That's how I did it.
Okay. All right. So you might change the order that you put it together?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's what you do if you did it backwards. All right. Does this have a special name? Medusa. Medusa. The name of her shell design is a Medusa. It's Medusa. All right. It's what? With a smiley. With a smiley face. Yes. Okay. So it's a happy Medusa. That's kind of complicated. All right. Let's see. Somebody said they did patterning. So, is this one? Oh, your pattern. She's wearing her pattern. Okay. I know it's in her hair. All right. Well, I think I still want it. Is it stuck? This may be a gift for her because it's stuck. So, okay. if you have patterns, all right. All right, here's your pattern. What you did. So, if I choose this one, can I put it on here without the match your pattern? Why wouldn't that match the pattern? It needs another yellow one. Okay. Right. Could I put this one in the pattern? It's not yellow. Oh, so if I put it here, then the next one I'd have to do would be a yellow than that one. Oh, so we're working on matching our quantity. Okay. So it's not just putting them together. She said I had to fix it so that the quantity remains the same. And a little error. All right. So if I started this again, this would work. Okay. But I really want to put a red one in here. Will this work in your pattern? I'd have to start from that. Okay. So questioning that. And so when you ask them and pose something that's discrepant, that creates another way of thinking. Would this go next? I love when I would do this kind of questioning and I would say, can you make a pattern for me? If they use the word pattern, you make a pattern for me. And they would make some bizarre pattern that would, like do red and orange, and yellow and green and purple. Here's your pattern. Well, it's not an ABAB pattern. It's not an AABB pattern. It's not an AB. Okay, but it's a pattern if I start repeating it. So I spoke it out loud and said, oh, so it starts with green, just like we talked about there. I could start it again with it. Start with green. So and I talked it out loud to explain that's the input about a pattern. So by questioning it and posing that in there. Now, some of the things and why I push you as adults, learners, to do it another way, do it another way, do it another way, is to get you to push your limits a little bit. Because there's so many traditional ways that we would expect the story to organize. And we oftentimes expect the children to sort and organize. Just like I did with keeping their runs. All of it, they can do it, see they learned it. Not really. They didn't internalize it. So by manipulating it, by asking them the questions, giving them a big process, if they're developmentally ready to do that with your support, you'll see that progress. If not, go back and say, okay, yeah, thanks for doing that, and then they'll make you do some of the smile. They, and many times, especially if they're using materials, they're just exploring them. Like stacking blocks up just because they match songs. That's what they'll do. They're looking at one characteristic, and that's fine to do that. My grandson, who is 2, he'll be 3 in September, he's right now in that. And he gets mad if the blocks aren't exactly the same size. So I'm like, well, do this one. Just threw it down, grabbed another one, long way. And I wish I had a video of teaching blocks in 2 weeks in class, and I could show him that it's just inherent developmentally where it's at. So we're not going to push them developmentally out of what they're ready to do, but by asking the questions, you're doing that teachable moment and supporting them. So hopefully you'll find some of the questions, it's just the idea of sometimes it's sort of you have a name for your groups, and rather than red, yellow, red group, green group, yellow group, that's fine. Buttons I love because I've had children do them where they're like, you look at it and go, this looks like nothing. It looks like there's no thought process here. Can you tell me about how you made things? Well, these have 4 holes and no little metal bond. And these have 2 holes, and these have that shank, the metal, these have metal shank. What would you call those? You know, metal thingies, 4-hole, 2-hole groups. They often have a logic that is logic to them
they are using thought processes, they are using critical thinking, but they're not doing it like we would expect. So especially with your threes, they're going to be in that place, they're going to make graphic things. And when you say to them, you know, okay, now make a red group, a green group, a blue group, they can practice that, but they still may not have internalized classification. To let them explore the characteristics and do that. So that's that idea of hands-on, minds-on. I did put on page 4 just a planning cycle. I know you had a plan. I know you had to do those things, but it's something that I share with my students as well. Just and help you just kind of thinking through the process. I actually, many times you see, assess the learners, choose the objectives, it could be from your curriculum. I've reviewed your materials and things too. I know what your curriculum guides will look like, your assessments and things are. Design the lessons, implement the lessons, evaluate it, and they forget the organized materials and the learning environment. A lot of times the planning cycle won't include that. They just say, well, that's, you design the lessons, you plan them, that includes that. I like to specify it so that you're thinking about some of the things you talked about. Do I want this to be in a small group? Are they all going to be engaged in the same way? Is this in a large group? Where would it be? Do I need to change the space? Would I do this on the floor? Would we do this in partners? Think about the physical space decisions as well as the materials, you know, that you have and how to organize them and do that. Yes, you're going to forget once in a while, but the idea of maximizing the learning time is also going to do that. Let's see what we're going to do. So it's kind of like a promotional video. It's like, and next time you can do what's left on there. Okay, so I talked about questioning, and then where I talk about guiding each player's learning. I know you know a lot of this, but I just wanted to put that piece in there. We gather the information about their skills, their characteristics, by watching them, by observing them, maybe taking those observational notes, gathering evidence of their work. I don't know if you use photo documentation, you know, different kinds of things that you do. That's actually what I was doing. You're going, why did you take the pictures of me? I will not share them publicly. You can now find yourself on Facebook. You know, it's just a matter for me to reflect back on how I did it in the workshop. The same thing that I'm doing on the planning cycle, you know. So I'm just thinking through, how did it go? What did they do? Can I make that more effective? I do that as well. So I take some photo documentation while you're working to see, you know, how that happened. So that's another way of doing it. Connecting with families as well. You know, whether you're having conferences with families, whether you have communication survey. I don't really do you have instruments that they fill out upon application coming to the program about their children? Do you do that? You do that? Oh, okay. So yeah, a parent survey. Yeah. So the idea, whatever it might be what they're interested in, best ways to communicate. You know, there's so many different ways to communicate. I remember when we used to find out, can we call you at work or not? It was like landline, you know. But now, what's the best way to communicate with you? What concerns do you have about your child? You know, all those different kinds of things, and communicating back and forth and different strategies that are used. So that I think is pretty cool. On page 3, where I have adjustments in the environment. Have you worked with Universal Design for Learning? No. Okay. I wasn't sure with that, and so that might be an interesting piece to go. Universal Design for Learning actually came out of architecture, and it really reflected the ADA law, the idea of changing the physical environment so it's more accessible. So that's why you have automatic doors, or you have curb cuts and things like that. But what we find with UDL has been adapted into education in all kinds of settings, but it's required in public settings, that we use it there to say, when we shift this, then not only does it help the individual who has these special needs, it tends to help all learners to benefit. So that we give different ways of giving input, talking, visuals, graphics, hands-on, auditory, moving around, and do gallery walk, just trying to mix it up and do those different kinds of things to meet different learners. I'll give you a real life example that I had. I teach integrating fine arts in the classroom for our elementary education students. I love play and creativity. You ever want me to talk about that? And all those, I'll come back and do that again too. I love doing that. A lot of discrepant events that I do. So when I had this class, then I had a student who was in our MAT program. In our graduate programs, we can have men in our graduate programs. Our Master of Arts in Teaching, our Master of Science in Education is also available to men. Undergrads are not, but they are on weekends. So it had to be a combined class at that time, undergraduate and graduate, because that's when we were starting to get a lot of inquiries about they want an elementary background, but we didn't offer it on a weekend format. So they let them into cross-listed them. So I taught integrated fine arts in the evenings for a lot of years, but that big block of time was good. But one of my students was deaf, hard of hearing. And I have to teach music. How am I going to do that? And because he was significantly deaf, hard of hearing, there were two signers, so that because it was a 6 to 8:40 class, and so they had to have two to split them up. And I do some sign language. I said, you have to really stand where I cannot see you because I'll start watching you. It's like, what did I say? What does it look like? What does it say? What does it look like? So we had to work that out. But I had to constantly think, how am I presenting the information? Now, I knew he was getting that information from language in terms of input, not by hearing, but by sign language. But what else am I doing? And so then when I went to have to do music, what I do often is play different songs and get their impressions. We do aesthetic analysis of that. How am I going to do that? If I was in my own space away from the other classrooms in the college, I would have played the boombacks on the floor with the vibrations and those kinds of things. But that would have bothered everybody in the entire building, so that wasn't an option. So I used the graphic, to show the beats and the music, played it as loud as I could. He also placed himself close just for what he could hear with his residual hearing. So I'm thinking, I did captioning on every video. I made sure if I had something that clip I was doing, I could caption it. And I'm thinking, I'm doing well with this. This is great. Until I realized that I hadn't really connected and found out that he's a musician. So again, connecting with information. Now, he was an adult, so I could ask him. Children, they may have different kinds of things that we need to connect with families to find out about. But the other part of that with UDL is I found out the captioning helped a lot of the students. The bouncing lines with the music reinforced the idea of rhythm and beat that I was teaching because they could see it visually. Of course, we did dancing and moving and all those things as well, so we had kinesthetic in there. And it really taught me that I had to make different adjustments for students over time. But that one with the sensory loss really forced me to see everything that I adjusted with him in mind helped every other student in the classroom. So when you think about, tactile kinds of experiences, all the students can benefit. You think about maybe providing larger print for a child that has visual impairment. The larger print is probably going to help the majority of students. So universal design for learning has to do with how am I presenting the information, giving some options and variety to meet the different needs. How are they rehearsing it, practicing it, reinforcing that, what kind of assignments I'm giving and adjusting. And then what kind of ways of expression are there? Can they show it in different ways? And so, who was I talking about with the leaves and the trees? Andrea. Yes, she was talking about an activity that they did where they traced the children's hands and arms and then had leaves, for them to place on there to make trees and said, make the trees however you want. And so she said one really liked blue and just blue, 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 and some had 3. So it wasn't like, okay, you each have 6 leaves to put them on. Oh, no, not there. You know, don't put it, oh, do that. And so, and what Andrea said was, you know, people said, well, why are we're letting them make these choices, you know, rather than where you want to correct it. You want to make it look good, you know, because you think, well, they'll be more proud of their work if it looks like what it's kind of supposed to look like. They don't care. It's a process of what they did. So how are they presenting the information? You know, can they draw it? Can they sing it? Can they, you know, sometimes it's giving choices to lots of students. Sometimes it's letting them choose. You know, here we're doing a book study. And in this group, you know, we're going to do role playing. We're going to act out the story. In this group, we're going to do an art project. In this group, we're going to do a music one. Today, you get to choose which one you're going to do. Then you're kind of letting them explore. Another time, you may redirect them to something else, so it's not necessarily their strength to see how they do it. But letting them make choices, there's different ways of expressing it. So I want them to show me what? I want them to show me how they can count from 1 to 10. Can they dance it? Can they sing it? Can they write it? Can they draw it? So that would be some of the adjustments you might have to make for different learners. Like I had a child, 4-year-old, who could read at a 3rd grade level day 1. Could not write his name. Fine motor skills, you know, way below developmental level. So I've got this complexity. So if I'm asking him to produce something that is recognizable, it's not going to happen. So for him to express it in another way, what his learning was, and for me to document it that way, he has another piece of that. So that's one of those. There's a comment. You want to learn more about universal design for learning, adjustment for learning. That was. Kind of so I'm going to start lining things up. I told you I was overplanned. Do you have questions? I'm just going to do this. Do you have questions, comments, or do you want to tell me what more do you want to learn? What more do you want to see? What support you in your teaching or next step?
Anybody want to add anything to?
Yes, please do.
Should I ask my question about technology?
Yes, yes. She was asked, said you had iPads.
Well, the school gave us 2 iPads. We've never had them before. It says that, you know, you can give us suggestions of apps that you want on the iPads. And I said, what? They don't have this Catholic school. He says, you know, we can't afford to buy a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
Research free apps or things. So I don't.
Right.
That's something I'd like more information on how to use that technology with preschool.
Yes. 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 Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see. Yes. Yes, that would be good. So the idea of, and what are the multiple uses of it? When you have 1 or 2 pieces of equipment, you're not doing whole group. What can you do? What can you do for maybe a group might use it? And there actually, I saw a great project that was done where they kindergartners were, this is kindergartners in preschool. Kindergartners were studying the life cycle of the butterfly. And they went out and used the iPad to take pictures of as their butterflies, you know, came out in the classroom, and also things in the natural environment. And they then put the pictures together on the iPad and made little movies, you know, just flowing, you know, with like a PowerPoint. Used as a PowerPoint and embedded those in there. So the camera function is actually sometimes really helpful for documenting and sharing different kinds of things. So, but yes, that's definitely an area that having the technology is one thing. Using it, you know, learning it yourself, learning how it can benefit you as a teacher in terms of management information, things like that. But then, am I using it? It goes back to what I talked about. How can I use it for giving information? How can I use it for them to rehearse information? How can I use it to help them show? So it's all of those things. So that's a great one. Anything with technology. Other kinds of things are questions. Yes.
If you don't have the iPads or the computer, how do you, or even a projector that works, how do you integrate the technology into the classroom?
That's a good question. Honestly, as resources vary, you make friends with people who have things to loan you. I've used my own, before. Depends what population of students you're working with. Sometimes families can support that. Some of the projects, several of my students are really good at this. They'll post some of the projects that they want funded. You see, and one gal, she's good. She's in Catholic school. She's good. She designs well thought out projects, and she's probably in her first year. She's in her second year teaching now. Her first year of teaching, I think she had $2,000 of things funded. You post it, you share it, and then fundraisers. I think actually, I don't know if you heard about Ashton Kutcher funded a bunch of on that site in Iowa. I heard one of them. Ashton Kutcher. So you have to be kind of innovative, but that's, more thinking about. And we used to have, there's computer labs, you have this, you have desktops, you have this, you have the portables, you have to share them, the resources, so maximizing this topic, that's definitely a topic then. Other particular questions or feedback in general? I'd like you to think, like I said, just sort of laying out a lot of things. And I know that they told me how long I had. I said, well, I didn't think so. I did. But I'm willing to do some of the other things later on. Because they really kind of, what I was going to work on a little bit was engaging the children in webbing and planning and kind of empowering and sharing some of that ownership. And then also some documentation, as strategies and things like that. So almost was kind of a shift there anyway. So, but I want you to just think yourself, maybe just something that triggered something in your own mind. It doesn't have to be anything in particular that I shared a detailed or a fact with you. But think about what are like 2 takeaways that you would like to do. Obviously Monday morning, but within a short time. What are some goals you have? Just share at your table with your neighbors. What are some takeaways that you think? And it might be if I had the technology, I would do this. So it might be an if, then, and then you kind of think how to get there. One of the things that I was going to commercial is to talk about KWHL charts. You heard KWL, but you know what you want to know, what you've learned, okay, in terms of planning. Have you heard of KWHL? That was kind of a, we don't see that much. What do you know? What do you want to learn? How do you plan to learn it? And what have you learned? So that they help plan the strategies. That can be you sitting down with a team of teachers too. You can use the same thing. But with children, how do you do that? So think about just some takeaway that you would like to try. Maybe it's been on your back burner. You want to get on your phone. Just share for a couple of minutes at your tables, and then we'll do outline.